Good afternoon. We have with us Guillaume Bardet, Ionna Vautrin, and Bas Smets to talk about Notre-Dame and what it's like to work on the project of your life, because there aren't so many projects like that. So Guillaume Bardet is a sculptor. We have Ionna Vautrin, designer, and Bas Smets, who is a landscape architect. So we're going to try and see what it's like to create within the framework of Notre-Dame. Now, Guillaume Bardet, can you tell us about the genesis? Before competing for Notre-Dame, you worked on a sort of a crazy project called the last dinner, the scene. Yes, I had worked on that project. I had showed it at the Tourette convent, and then I presented it Rue Dauphine, and while I was in fact preparing the exhibition, in fact Notre-Dame was destroyed by a fire. So I was working on the exhibition. I walked out of the gallery and I saw Notre-Dame on fire. You start hearing noise, and I turned around and I saw Notre-Dame on fire. So a moment of a lot of emotion. And then the exhibition in the gallery, when people saw the table there, they thought, it would fit perfectly in Notre-Dame. And all the stools around the table, each stool represented an apostle, yes, including Judas. Yes, quite so. And all in bronze. All the pieces were in bronze at Créo. So the Genesis has another shape for Bas. Bas inherits something that already exists, is the cathedral, but everything around. So that's an air view of the existing situation. And you had to plunge in this masterpiece and imagine a project for the future. Yes, I started by rereading Victor Hugo at the time of the competition. Two sentences struck me. He said, Notre-Dame is a building in transition that constantly changes, and it's true with the renovation. And he also wrote, Île de la Cité is the crib, the cradle of Paris. And when we started looking at what existed, we discovered that on Île de la Cité, that island that was chosen by the Romans to actually start their city, all the urban landscape typology was tried out here on this island, and then the rest of the city was built. So, working on Notre-Dame is like working on the city. So you see here the front, you have a little square at the back. So all the typology of Paris is present here, in fact, in different pieces. So we asked ourselves, can we improve, starting with what exists, what can we do? So this is the future situation that is quite different, in fact, from the beginning. So that was the genesis. I wanted to ask you a question. What do we feel when we're selected to take part in such a competition, and when you actually win that competition? Can you tell us, how do we feel? How do we feel when we win the competition? we feel very small when we think of the size of the task, when we think about the history of that monument. So you're immediately very humble. And of course, I was very happy to be on a short list. You know, we were 5 at the beginning, and I remember that when I was told that I had won, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. It was pretty abstract because for the chair we are talking about, we did have an opportunity to visit the cathedral during the competition, during the reconstruction, so we had to read books about the history of Notre-Dame. We had to try and call on our memories of the cathedral. So it was pretty abstract. But you know, I think that until the actual commissioning or opening, I still won't really, you know, imagine. And when you were told that you had won the competition, it was a long journey because our competition was very long. Between October, the first selection phases, then 5 months, in fact, and already just the fact of participating is frightening, you know, and so I was pretty frightened, and in a way, you know, I was even ready, you know, to not to be selected, but I took the specs and I worked on my project. And I worked on my project, and I said, okay, even if I do not, I'm not selected, that's okay. I will have done, you know, my project for Notre-Dame. So then, you know, 6 months after that, until you are selected, you don't really believe in it. It's like a dream. But all of a sudden, you're selected, but you're not quite selected yet because you still have another year to work for the furniture. On top of that, we were together. I had just come out of a motorcycle accident, and I didn't really have time to realize. I started working immediately, and I really just focused on my work because when I, you know, think about it in an abstract way, it's more a source of concern. So I'd rather, you know, stick to my work. So so you talked about you all had this idea of doing your best project, something you know you should be proud of, and that even if you weren't selected, that was okay. It's just that you would have done your best. It happened to you too, Bas. Yes, I understand and feel. We were very happy to be selected to take part in the competition. And yes, we were also very humble, as you described. And I thought, I didn't imagine we could you know, win the project. And so anyway, I thought, well, anyway, we won't be selected, but we'll do our best. We'll do something we can be proud of, and that's okay. We can lose even if we have a great project. And you know, when they rang me to say I had won, I couldn't believe it either. I said, can you repeat? And they, you know, I really couldn't believe it. You know, I didn't imagine we could win. So now Bas's project, it's a video. It's a 3-minute video that Bas is going to comment. So you will discover the size of the project, you know, organizing the space around Notre-Dame. So here we focus on the microclimate. You know, what do we want around Notre-Dame? What do we want in a city of the 21st century? And how to take into account climate? And so we looked at the collective dimension and the climate. So here we worked on temperatures today, a simulation for 2050. So there will be a problem of heat. You see here in the front of the church or on the other side. At the back, we worked on the wind, humidity, the tree evapotranspiration that can help us change the climate. You know that under a tree, it's 4 degrees less. That's thanks to the evaporation of the leaves. We worked about the wind channeled by the Seine River. We multiplied the number of trees. We have 180 today. We want to add another 150, and we will block the wind in one of these small streets because it's really annoying in the winter. So we've worked on improving the microclimate. Then a sort of journey around the church. You know that we had 12 million visitors. We count on 15, and we also want to have the Paris people coming to visit. So we will collect the stormwater, and we will collect it and reuse it to cool the terrace in front, thanks to a thin layer of water. On the back, you see the wind that we channel. So a microclimate approach, recreating new landscapes and taking into account a certain number of elements. We increase the park. We also modify slightly the front. That gives us a new view of the facade of the church. And you see in blue the impact of the project. So in 2050, we will be able to visit the cathedral with a nice temperature around you. There will be a connection between the cathedral and the Seine banks. Now, you know that you have the water coming from the east, and you have the axis of the church going in the other direction. You see the thin layer of water here that will irrigate the front, that will evaporate and cool. And you know, the Archbishop said, do you plan us walking on water? And I said, no, I think that someone has already done that. I won't be doing that. But still, it's quite symbolic, you know, to bring water to the cathedral that has in fact was destroyed by fire. If you saw the banks and you saw all the green spaces around the cathedral. So walking on water, so very symbolic projects. And the next question, now, how do you deal with such a monument and work on a project that is more, you know, for posterity than for today? You are offering this project to the Paris people of the future. So what do you do? Do you really do your utmost when you work on such a project? I don't know if we do our utmost because of that. But the first thing is, what is the issue with this project? So we work on, in a cathedral. So we have to come up with a project that is in line with the past, that is is okay for today, but also in line with the future. So we work on something that has to last over time. And there's another sort of work. Yes, of course, the work has to be immediately recognized by the Christians or the Catholics who come, but also we want to be open to all visitors. And the Paris Archbishop said this, that visitors were also very important, not just the Catholics. So that's another point to take into account. So of course you do your utmost, but this is the two questions or points I had in mind. And Ionna, we've seen the work site. We never have a chance to see the inside, but it's a huge scaffolding. And Ionna, we discover your chairs. And what is your relation with the space around you, with that huge space? Yes, we can say that this chair will probably last for half a century. So what we were asked to draw, design, we were asked to have a silent object, a chair that would be also humble, modest, that would not be the most important thing you see when you enter the cathedral. Because when you enter the cathedral, it's Notre-Dame that you're going to discover, not these chairs. So here we see the image of a single chair, but it lives with a set of chairs. There will be something like 1,500 in the nave. I wanted to work on a dialogue between the Gothic architecture, where we have arches, transparency. At the back, you see a small arch, and the chairs one next to the other. Well, you have the wooden rods that, in a way, are a connection with the columns of the cathedral. The fact we have these rods also give the chair certain transparency and make them humble and make them less noticeable, maybe. And also, the back of the chair is slightly lower, so those people who want to pray can also kneel on the floor and rest their arms on the chair. On top of that, there are many functional constraints. They have to be, they should be able to pile them up, to stack them. You must be able to tie them one to the other. So a lot of technical aspects. You have to also be very pragmatic, and it's not just spiritual dimensions. But that's why it's interesting to work on this type of project. You have the symbolic aspect, the use, but also the functional aspect. And you were asked to make them lower so that they would not hide the columns. When we put in the first prototypes, we saw that the height revealed some elements at the bottom of the column that you couldn't see before with the other chairs. And so it actually, yes, reveals some architectural elements of the cathedral that were not that visible before. Bas, here we have a picture of the front. Here again, you reveal the front of the cathedral. We see it much better than before. Let me say that we keep the fence, but if you look closely, we go on with the chess sort of floor. We have it inside, same thing outside, same length, same width as inside. And we just rotate the tiles, and it is the change in the direction that gives you this impression, but it brings to mind the interior of the cathedral, and you see the idea of planting trees around this, so it also gives you an opportunity to sit in the shade. Coming back to the creative process, you have been closely accompanied. You met with a technical committee, so it's not just a question of handing over a project, a finalized project. You were really accompanied. So, Guillaume, all these sketches that you present for this furniture, the specifications were very well done, very comprehensive, very precise, even a bit too much at the start, and that was a bit frightening because I had the impression there was no room for maneuver. I needed time to digest it so I could go beyond that. And the first question, immediately I had a few questions to ask. The question of the material, the longevity. So the only possibilities were stone or bronze. We visited Notre-Dame. It was very early on. We had the scaffolding, as you saw, but some of the walls were cleaned already, and they were magnificent. Magnificent. We saw the stone very dark, but it's not that at all anymore. Now Notre-Dame, it's going to be a new church. The light is fantastic. The stone is blonde, so absolute beauty. And I thought, we have to be careful with the minerality. If we have to choose a stone, I don't know what sort of stone we can use. I worked on stone projects in the past, but I thought, no, bronze is better adapted. And this will make it possible to exist and last. And I don't need to have a strong patina. Just the change in material is enough for the furniture to exist. So I had the christening area at the entrance of Notre-Dame. In fact, you had 7 rooms around, and it's in one of them. So I always work with a notebook, but in this case, I worked with a larger number, one for each room. And Ionna, how did it happen for you? What is your creative process? So the process was quite long. It started in October 22, 2 steps in the competition. The first one was January 2023, where we presented our project intentions and our intention to collaborate with this or that company. I decided to collaborate with Bosque, a chair production company located in the Landes. They have a real know-how in producing chairs, and they had this ability to work with wood and doing digital machining on the wood to produce subtle products, but also simple, subtle and simple. And also the colors and the stained glass, with this idea of transparency. You know, the rods of the chair also recall a bit the stained glass, and you have the light projections, and you don't see it, but the chair is structured with a cross that echoes the chess board of the aspect of the tiles, so in line with the floor, and also the fact that it's a lower chair, it really stresses the verticality of the cathedral. So yes, the chair was completely produced in France. Everything will be done locally with the French wood. So it's like all these skilled artisans, you know, that have worked on the cathedral. And Bas, can we come back to one of those spaces that you have revisited? It's an underground space. Yes. I started thinking about a team to take part in the competition. We have created a group with 2 architects and engineers also, so 4 members in the group. And I looked for a collective intelligence to be able to answer such an important and broad question. And with the architects, we started imagining the transformation of the former parking that is no longer in use. The architects propose to take away the intermediate level, -1. Here you are on -2, and to use that parking as a reception area, open on the Seine in the crypt. And we have positioned the stairs where before you had the facade, and when you are on the intermediate floor, you have the view that they had a long time ago. You know that, in fact, originally the cathedral was to be seen a bit like that, from the bottom. So we positioned the stairs specifically there, and we plunged 800 years back to find again the view we had before. So coming back to this project, we see that we have 3 different approaches, 3 different professions, and 3 different results. So we have 3 projects with common values. The legibility in terms of the cult, the clarity and open spaces, there's silence and humility. There is the silence, which is exceptional.
We have a symbolic narrative. We're not going to talk about walking on water, but you have the reflection that you have, like a Garden of Eden, with the sun rising on the east and the Seine River. And then also the importance of manufacturing by hand, the handcraft, the human gesture. You wanted to bring that human aspect to the project. A few slides here. We realize this sea of silent seats which occupy the space. Yes, indeed. Now, these are the pictures at the time of the competition. The chair was proposed in a light oak. Since then, it has evolved. It's a bit darker to harmonize all of the elements, including the liturgical furniture. So the chairs are not as light, and they're more in contrast with the renovated stone. Bas, we spoke a great deal about the front of the Notre-Dame Cathedral, and what about the rear, which is more of a reception space? So we have preserved the John the 23rd square with its benches, and you also have these possibilities of walking, strolling. You have the eye which is drawn toward the rear of the vehicle with its flying buttresses, its windows, its stained glass windows, all of this bringing towards the Seine River to eliminate, the fence that exists there, to reduce it in size so as to have that direct relationship between the cathedral and the Seine River. Also remove the parking lot at the Archbishop's See, so as to enlarge the garden. So, in fact, the goal is to remove that opaque fencing, which takes away from the magic of the place. For Notre-Dame, that maybe we don't all understand what the different furniture which are linked to the religious function of the church, the altar, for example, the baptism fount, the tabernacle, etc. You said, in fact, my first intuition was to look at the pulpit at the entrance to the chorus area, and then you have an altar, in fact, which is anchored in the ground and rises towards the sky. So these are bronze mock-ups that we created for the competition. In fact, they are a scale of 1/5. Now, I must say that I did not know, in fact, all of these parts, in fact, what they are. And you need to know that the bottom here is made of stone. The foundation is stone, and the top is the cross is bronze. In fact, this is an ambon, okay? And so this is the first piece that we produced, and then have a kind of thread we can develop to tell the story. So this is why I produce these very small wax mock-ups, which enable me to very quickly have what I need. And as I work on one, I immediately think, about this before I meet with the people from Notre-Dame. So the baptistère here, in fact, this is something, in fact, that I will explain. So you have a base on which it's placed. It will be at the entrance to Notre-Dame. It's the first piece that you will see. The difficulty here is where you have to have a cover on it. Why do you have a cover? And 15 million people will maybe throw coins here, but sometimes chewing gum. You don't know what they're going to do, in fact. So here we want to symbolize a water surface. So it's bronze, which has been polished to such an extent that it looks like water, and the cross arises from this, representing the Jordan River. So you have this cross, and you have, in fact, the baptistère, which is placed on its stone base, which is one single color. You have, in fact, different textures. So we really worked with this. Now, you need to know that here in the alignment you have the altar. You have the altar. I think that the altar. So the baptistère is in line with the altar. Okay. Here we have a good picture where you can see the baptistère. This is the altar, okay? This is the altar. The altar was the more restrictive piece. You had a certain height, a certain width, and depth. So this really tended to limit the amount of play we had. This is vertical. This is to remind people of sacrificial altars of the past. But at the same time, it refers to the Last Supper. So this is why you have that horizontal theme with a very vertical volume. The idea was that we had to lighten this as much as possible to give that horizontal look. Finally, it's bigger than you thought. Yeah, I wanted to enlarge it, and I was told no, but now it's 1.85 meters. Initially, it's 2.30 meters. So here you see, in fact, when you remove the cover of the baptistère, you see the interior of the baptistère is copper and mirrors the water. This is a tabernacle. I was familiar with churches, but I wasn't familiar with the vocabulary. The tabernacle is complicated. It is the most sacred part of the church. This is where you have the host, which symbolizes, the body of Christ. So this is the most precious part of the church. It is placed, it was placed in the old altar of Viollet-le-Duc, which is very, very busy. This is very small, this object. 50 centimeters, right? So I wanted to have something that was very simple. It's a house which opens like a book. It's a very sober-looking house. Inside you have the treasure. It's a bronze inside with a little plateau to place the treasure there. The cathedral is the bishop's chair. If you remove the cathedral, then the cathedral becomes a church again, not a cathedral. So it's only the bishop and archbishop who have the right to sit on that cathedral, that chair, and it represents represents the presence of Christ in the church, this chair. It's a kind of throne. So I was asked to design a present-day throne. So you have the throne and associated seats. My idea was that we're all equal, we're all human beings. So everyone has the same chair. And then afterwards, you have statues, of course. You have the back, which rises for the archbishop. In the bronze is polished like a mirror. And when the sun shines, it becomes like gold. Well, you have that spirituality and function. Now, the furniture has to speak to the Christians. In the cathedral, in fact, where you have 12 million international visitors per year, it has to be contemporary and embrace both the past and the future, because it is speaking to both Christians and non-Christians. Yes, yes, of course, but this is very important. You know, a non-Christian is not going to necessarily understand all of the aspects of the liturgy here, but we're speaking of something which is sacred, and the non-Christian will understand this and recognize this because these are bronze pieces placed on these stone bases. You know, initially we modeled this in 3D, and there were no chairs. Well, Notre-Dame without chairs doesn't work. So we had to have chairs very quickly for it to really exist. I think that the chair tends to reflect humanity, the human being. The chair is humanity. And I think it's really a good idea that it is wood because it is human, whereas what is sacred transcends time and needs a material that transcends time. So I think that the different pieces are in dialogue. Well, it's interesting because this is really a kind of universal language, whether Japanese or Koreans. You have the relationship that is at work here. People will be able to identify with this. We see different views. Here you see the pulpit. I think that the pieces speak for themselves. I think that what you see the pictures, but then you have all of the manufacturing process. To give you an idea, you know, the altar will take more than 1,500 hours of work. You know, I produce a lot of large bronze pieces. I work with a foundry which is located near where I live in the south of France. We know each other well. And you have to know well with the foundry because we have a very, very short deadline to ensure that all of the parts be finished by October 2024. I have won the time issue, but I spent the summer sculpting. The Archbishop of Paris came to the workshop with 2 assistants to validate everything. Here you see the pieces in the workshop which are sculpted. They've gone to the foundry where the first wax molds have been made, and so now. You know, I'm still working on the tabernacle because we have that difficulty with the opening. But all of the cult-related objects are being designed. You know, that I had the, the chalice and all of the other pieces that need to go into the tabernacle. There's the incense holder as well that has to be produced. I think that the process is quite extraordinary. You know that to see in the 21st century, it's extraordinary to see the work. You know, I love these places of worship, which are very often incredible. And we should never forget that for centuries in France, the church was a major commissioner of artwork in France. And this is the truth for Notre-Dame. And the order, the commission from Notre-Dame is very important. Now, I have a question. What do you expect from your projects? Is there a desire to continue? What would you like in terms of future projects? You know that in my work, you think and plan for the generation that will follow. Everything we plant, well, will only really be visible and bear fruit in 20, 30, 50 years. For this project, what I hope is that it continue to develop. You know, this is a building in transition dating back to Viollet-le-Duc. And I think of another model to envisage the public spaces where the inhabitants and visitors blend and produce maybe a microclimate which can help us fight global warming. What do I expect? I don't secretly expect this. I hope that the project be well perceived by the public, and that the people not really see the object, that the object disappear to the advantage of the cathedral. What about you, Guillaume? I don't think I have any expectation. I'm living the present of what I'm doing, so I have no projections. This is my life today and has been my life for over a year now. It's a part of my life. It's so grandiose that I know that afterwards I will have to rest before I get the desire to do something else. I'm halfway across the ocean. I still have the other half to cross. So it's really a life project. Thank you to the three of you.